Welcome, fellow Vault Hunters, to the Horrors of Kairos event! With new legendaries, new spooky decorations, and an all-round grim feel. But you know what the most terrifying change of all is? Overwhelming nerfs to all of the most powerful builds in the game! No! Oh yes, it's finally happened. The looming, threatened, and twice delayed nerf patch is here along with the Horrors of Kairos Halloween event. So, without further ado then, let's get into these changes and what it means for the game. Now, there's a lot of generally just nice improvements, like reduced specialization cost of Iridium down to 1500. That's really, really good because it was kind of a huge drain to actually play around and test things and constantly use it, and given that we're probably going to have to respec based on the things nerfed and fixed, that's nice to see. Also, I love stuff like this. Added drops to certain boss fight that was not dropping loot. In any case, I guess that's nice. The rest of these aren't anything absolutely crazy, just smooth improvements to the game, like discovered locations stay when returning to single player after multiplayer, which is obviously huge. It was really annoying, especially as someone who went through the game in co-op, but this is just a good set of bump smoothers for your general experience. I do hope the loot enemies dropping more cash is like a crazy amount, like it absolutely pours out. That would be quite fun. Then when we get to gameplay and missions, both of these are nice, smooth increases. It was annoying when that happened, and it's always annoying when things just don't work in multiplayer. It puts a real awkward break on the fun that you're having. And this is also quite interesting because there are a lot of places you can get round or get in before you should, and I wonder if they have all actually being hit. But in any case, yeah, another just good set of changes. None of them you're going to like immediately notice or be world-shattering. They're just going to make the game and playing through it feel better and more accurately feel as it should. The big things then are your Vault Hunter changes and your gear changes. I want to start with Vex because, well, that's the Vault Hunter I play and specialize in build crafting for, and immediately, yep, here it is. Your bleed from bloodletter is no longer recursively triggering itself, which obviously makes sense. You could just get bleed going, throw crit knives in, and, well, enjoy literally reaching damage cap. It made your build pointless, it made your gear pointless, it made any challenge in the game pointless, but it was hilarious fun. But it's had its time, and now at least the big positive of this is we can use bloodletter in builds without getting a, well, that's just, that's just a bloodletter build, obviously it's good, reaction, and actually gain the still really strong damage increase from using bloodletter in the way that it's intended to be. So this is just really exciting to me. It's a unlock of the skill in real terms. The rest of it isn't anything crazy. Trouble damage builds struggle, and this isn't enough of a damage increase to change that. It's not bad per se, but I would love to be able to do a build where trouble is the damage, but I just don't think this is it. It certainly helps. It's certainly a big increase when you look at it percentage-wise, but it's something that will need testing, but it doesn't immediately make me jump for joy. The rest is just a few fixes that will help. Rafa has survived fairly unscathed, all things in consideration, and both his lands getting cooldown reduction effects I think is actually quite nice. Though the projectile speed definitely might come into play, because there was some, let's say, kooky things going on with that, but overall not like an insane wall of tweaks. He did get quite a big lot last time with the melee tree. And just to have it sort of demonstrated then, the crits are going in, the bleed is critting, but it's not then re-triggering a new bleed, so we just get a nice damage bump from it, but it's not breaking. coming. And of course, I'll be bringing you the best post-nerf patch Vex build very soon. As for Amon, well, it's a lot of changes, but there are a few core ones of importance. Seeing red duration no longer increases per point invested and just 4 seconds at all ranks obviously means that seeing red is going to be harder to maintain, though if you are using My Touch's Death, that won't be as severe, but in any case, this was a real core of a lot of Amon builds, and it's going to affect it accordingly. Melee Amon is just kind of dead, because as we'll see, Groundbreaker is fixed, and he was heavily leaning on that crutch to do capable melee damage. The Blackout Shock, correctly scaling with points invested, is really good, because you could only use 1 point, now you can get all 5, which is actually a nice little increase, and might genuinely result in something awesome. Everything else is just kind of so. Obviously, though, I am not a pure Amon kind of guy, but we will, of course, be getting our Amon kind of guy on the situation for you guys in the coming days, but you can definitely have a look for yourself, too, with these notes. Hollow, then, is interesting. The main one is, of course, neutron capture, and the radiation is better against things weak to radiation, worse against everything else, but not kind of overall completely crippling. But of course, it now only applies to gunshots and all instances of gun damage, so that might affect things like Katagawa's repeated zaps, and is something that's definitely going to need testing, so watch this space. Hollow changes are definitely interesting. The gear, then, is where things get expectedly a little bit, you might feel, sad. The gun handling now properly increasing projectile speed, that is nice, and I do wonder if just gun handling lowering projectile speed in general is now fixed. You could do some silly things with that, and in other cases it was just really awkward. A few changes are in that aren't going to really do anything shattering, but then, rest in peace, oh Knife of Crit. At least, not really. Now, the dev note is it had to happen, you knew it was going to happen, and we did, and it did, but 30% blanket crit chance is still kind of absurd. Like, that still makes it the best ordinance for any build that doesn't need a specific ordinance by a long way. Just 30% blanket crit chance. I mean, a Vex Spectre build takes the node that gives 30% crit chance when you summon 3 Spectres, 10% each, because that's really good. And that's actual skill investment. Whereas this is still just your knife, easier and simpler with multiple charges. Like, it's still absolutely amazing, and if we didn't have context of the world where it was 100% and it had always been 30%, coupled with being able to roll a damage amp too, we would just always still be thinking that, yeah, this is really good. Even to the point that we might be worried the 30% would get nerfed a little bit. So this, while needed, does feel a little bit wrist slappy, and it makes me think that maybe the upcoming ridiculous bosses are going to be even more ridiculous than we realized if we're being allowed to keep it at this level. So overall, a huge nerf, but still a really strong item, and that just tells you how strong it was. The San Saba Songbird are no longer infinitely stacking. Obviously makes sense. It could go to infinite damage. And then we've got some sticky projectiles with the knife launcher being looked at, which of course is also expected. And then we've got the ricochet only triggering from intended damage sources. So in theory, that should fix all of the infinite ricochet shenanigans, like the kickballer and the disc launcher and various other such game-breaking stuff. We've also got a few other little changes that, again, aren't going to make huge, crazy differences. Can't get frangible from chest loot tables, so that's a huge win for everyone. I think we're all had our fingers crossed waiting for that. And then something like this is so funny to me. The flamethrower no longer deals infinite damage! I mean, yeah, fair enough. It's really one of those. This is a nice little change as well. And then we have gadgets no longer reset to maximum uses after gaining second wind, which is a little bit of a shame, honestly, and I'm not sure why that was even a thing. Maybe there's some sort of broken build I don't know about being affected by that. Nerfing how often Cinder Shelly speaks is quite fun too. And then we are kind of done with the main major fixes. It does sound like like pretty much everything we thought was going to be nerfed or fixed has been looked at, but it also feels like some of them might have actually survived and slipped through the cracks, so testing is definitely needed, and we will get back to you, but do expect a lot of the things you classically know as game breaking are no longer the case. Then we've got some actual full-on gear balance. The Star Helix going up is really nice. I really want that gun to be good, and it just doesn't feel like it. And then Bonnie and Clyde, which was already not a bad gun at all, going up is nice to see. More fire rate on Rowan's charge with easier control is also quite cool. And Lucian's flank, again, is nice to see, though of course it's a niche use case weapon. Aegon's stream going up can only be a good thing. Same with Bugbear. So just some buffs on the assault rifles. Then we've got some Ordinance changes, increase cooldown on Gamma Void, which is quite severe as well, and that's not too bad. This, however, is a nice little ethos to see, and hopefully that is actually borne out with the changes. Melee damage, action skill damage, and all 50 class mods has been increased by 60%. Which is obviously really a big deal, as the skill damage going up by 45%. Trying to encourage more variety of melee builds, and indeed raw, I'm using my skill to do damage builds. Maybe that will let Vex actually do a damage from Eldritch Blast, but we'll see. I've tried lots, it does struggle. This is really nice, and might actually couple with the trouble changes to make something workable. It's not going to be like dominant, but it might well be workable. And then also this is quite interesting too. There's a particular skill you can abuse with Avatar's attunement, and this makes it easier to do so. So again, research needed. Now, of course, with Forge Knight Gravatar, your Rafa and your Amon, I don't know the classes as well, so I will leave you here to read them. But, you know, I'm seeing a lot of increased and some big numbers, so I could only assume that that is a good thing. Gear that are affected by melee and action skill damage have increased effectiveness, again, and they just want action skill and melee builds to be better, which is nice to see. Hard hitter getting 10% more for 50% on that rep kit buff is really cool, and then all of the firmware associated to it also getting nice big boon. The shields changed here, again, for that melee, and one thing that we'll notice, right, is that the Vex Infinite Teen Witch healing into Amp Shield hasn't been touched or fixed, so that's very much still on the menu, and that's really delicious. Groundbreaker no longer doing infinite damage is a nice thing to see. Only gun, action skill, and ordnance damage. It's still going to be a really nice increase to melee builds, but it's not going to be, you know, crit bloodletter levels of it just ruins everything. And that's really nice to see. Then we have some various UI and UX changes that aren't going to be anything crazy. Same with your visuals and your audio, and, well, essentially everything else. But we have ourselves the big Encore boss as the weekly battle wagon, which is nice to see. And then the wild card is the kickballer, ironically after they should have fixed what makes it so ridiculously broken. But hey, it's Dark Subject, and of course Maurice is back once again, and we will find him very soon for you guys. So that's your kind of changes, the important stuff, as you have seen. Then, when it comes to your Horrors of Kairos specifically, you've got 2 new weapons dropping from world bosses. Well, 1 weapon and 1 grenade, and of course a pumpkin head cosmetic that you can grab, as well as weapon skins. And just look down below at the pinned comment, we will have the shift codes for you, golden chests, anything currently active, you can grab that there. If you're wanting to know what the grenade and the weapon actually do, it is Murmur, which is guaranteed crits on targets under 35% health, which isn't exactly ridiculous, depends on the rest of the stats of the weapon, but I mean, we already have a lot stronger weapons that are key to build, so this is more just fun than anything. Maybe something you swap to under 35% to really pop off on crit builds, I could see that happening. And then we've got Scully that fires out projectiles as it seeks its nearest target, which might actually be quite interesting depending on how those projectiles mechanically work, and we will of course get that to you as soon as possible. That then is that, a fairly big deal of a patch and a little bit of new Halloween content to go do, but honestly nothing crazy. The one next month is going to be a lot bigger, but look out to the channel over the next couple days as we bring you tests and builds and all of that good stuff. For now then, let me know what you think. Are you disappointed? Do you think it's fair? Are you annoyed that things did get fixed? Let me know. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.